All right, welcome back to another video of modern learning. And today we are going to be discussing a very serious topic, and that is about data and modern warfare. And we talk about modern all the time, and just so we can clarify, I'm talking about when modern learning, 2010s, which leads us to the Internet of Things, which leads us to global communication, which leads us to large scale data that we can train and act on. And that is essentially the world we live in now. And with that, we have aspects of life that come with it in terms of society and how countries operate. And the main one being warfare. So, the fact of the matter is, war is inevitable in terms of this world. And now we can see its evolution on fullest display in multiple locations. So, to break down what data actually looks like in this era, let's take a step back to see how it was previously, okay? So in previous eras, you'd have a lot of people, that were able to group together, armies were able to group together in masses, and they would essentially decide to, hey, maybe we're going to go invade these people. Maybe we're going to go invade another group and take over their land or something like that. And so what they did was they formed an army, and then they would just march in and take whatever they wanted and march in and take it, and it was pretty much essentially whoever was the most skilled at combat would win, in terms of one-on-one fighting. But then the game started to change, and it started to change. We actually have history of this in terms of autonomously manned attacks, things like that, in the 1800s, I believe. And this was I want to say the United Kingdom, that was actually using hot air balloons filled with bombs, gunpowder, to sail towards a particular location and see what happens. So obviously it was extremely inefficient. There was no way to tell, but about where it would land or how it would impact anything. But they were still able to do it, and they still did it. And that goes to show, just how early on a lot of infrastructure like that started. And so fast forward to like the 80s and the 90s, you start seeing the rise of warfare intelligence. So with the rise of warfare intelligence, right, in the 80s and 90s, you start to see things like the UAVs, right? So what a UAV is, if you ever played Call of Duty, you understand it pretty much tracks where an enemy combatant is and exists, and feeds that feeds that data to allies, so they understand and can now game plan around that strategically during a wartime. So if a UAV, this is our UAV, right? It's above and it's flying and everything's good. So what it would do is it could see an enemy over here, guy over here, right? And say he's got a gun or something like that, along those lines. So this is what the UAV sees. So this UAV would then send data to whatever entity it wants, say CENTCOM or something like that. And then CENTCOM can then relay it to soldiers on the battlefield, soldiers that are ready to act on this. Say somebody's over here, they have a better angle or shot, something like that, they could then have this happen and eliminate that enemy. So it would be a process where you gather the data was then relayed to the soldiers, and then the soldiers using that data would actually act on it and take the final trigger pull and things like that. But we've actually gotten to a point now where we don't even need any soldier in the loop in terms of actually making the action of attacking. And here's what I mean, right? So UAVs have evolved, and this started in the early 2000s, and it really was pushed on during actually the 2010s in terms of it actually being used in combat. But now these UAVs they are equipped with missiles, okay? Missile payloads. So what these missile payloads are, Hellfire missiles, And what they allow is look, we don't actually need to have somebody on the ground or scramble a jet to fire on a particular target. We can just have the UAV fly up above, recognize the target, and deliver the Hellfire missile. And that's exactly what we see now. So you have soldiers from other countries or other areas that are combatants, right? And what happens is, as soon as the UAV spots it, this is it spotting it, okay? As soon as it spots these guys over here as targets, boom. All we need is the CENTCOM commander or whatever operator is using it to just simply press the button. And so as soon as a button is pressed from the UAV delivering that data signal, it will fire the Hellfire missile and eliminate all targets pretty much instantly as soon as it gets the data it needs. And so that is kind of where it evolved in terms of the 2010s and how it was used widely. And there's a lot of controversy around that. But nowadays, we're actually at the point now where, we don't even need the CENTCOM operator in the first place. And here's what I mean by this, right? You don't need the CENTCOM operator. You don't need anybody to actually pull the trigger, because now we're so entwined with AI. And here's some of the crazier things, right? So say you are a high-profile terrorist in a country, right? So this is you, and you got your distinct face or whatever, you're a terrorist. And so you're operating how you would operate, but maybe you want to be a little bit more subtle. So you might decide to hide in a building somewhere. You might decide, hey, I'm going to try and actually beat the system in terms of them being able to find me. So I'm going to go hide over here. And I might just wait out a war, or I might just wait out over here until I move to my next location. The problem with this is, whenever you're inside one of these places, right? So say he's inside and he's in his bed, sleeping. Mr. Terrorist is nice, and he has a phone on his nightstand, right? Or potentially, maybe a drone in the background might see who this is, or they might get a update about something where he is. So as soon as the location of him confirmed, right? Say that we're able to tap into a phone next to him, or a laptop next to him, or maybe a computer or something, to where we can actually recognize his face up to, maybe 60 to 70%. As soon as we recognize this is the terrorist that's sleeping in this building, that's, doing everything that we consider bad, guess what? We don't even need to confirm it. If we have a 60, 70%, that's good enough. We'll automatically fire this drone, eliminate the terrorist. And that is completely autonomous. So the thing is now that we're in the day and age where it's perfectly normal for, somebody to go out like this from a drone that is simply delivering information from AI and that is transferring it around and into the right possession, into the right hands to deliver this blow. And this is happening all the time. So it's to the point now where you don't need the direct information from the UAV. All you need is just confirmation from a local source, whether that be a phone, a MacBook, whatever computer you use, whatever webcam you use. I mean, heck, even an Xbox or PlayStation game device ultimately could track somebody's IP and deliver that to an intelligence that would then execute a strike. So that's what we're seeing now in terms of on the front lines of warfare. And it's actually changed how we operate because, like we said earlier, right? So beginning of time, we have groups of people and they would gather up and they're saying, hey, you know what? Those guys over there, forget about them. We don't really want to deal with them anymore. So we're just going to go over there and take literally all of their land, all of their everything, right? So that's what they did, and they would just fight them head on. But in today's day and age, it's not like that. And a famous example in today's time, unfortunately, is the Ukraine-Russia war, where this is a border war. Both countries are at total war with each other. And you can actually see, like, any group of 2 to 3 individuals that are operating at a time is pretty much destined to be doomed, because they're always sending drones from up above to be able to spot this stuff and to be able to directly deliver those missiles like we talked about, whether they're Hellfire missiles or whatever other missiles that they're displaying. So yeah, so now if you're in a group like this, as soon as we identify, look, this is a cluster of infrared signals that are right here, we can confirm that these are people, and now we can confirm they're combatants. So guess what? We're dropping the bomb on them. Okay? So the bomb goes on them, and boom, and just like that, a whole platoon or whatever, a tank, any of that is wiped out completely. And the thing that makes this also damning in nature is these drones are extremely cheap to manufacture in and of themselves. So one MQ Reaper drone, I think they're actually pretty expensive because they're kitted out. They're like 60 mil, something like that. But these drones that are being used in Ukraine and Russia, I mean, you can make these for like $5,000. And it's to the point now where even local civilians in anywhere of the world could get their hands on a drone and just attach a C4 device to it and stuff like that. And just like that, it's extremely powerful and one of the more damaging weapons we've actually seen in modern history. And so that is very important to understand. So now, in today's day and age, you're not seeing any more in today's warfare, you're not seeing any more of those large groups. You're pretty much only seeing 1 to 2 groups. Maybe you might see 3 people that are operating in terms of, as a squadron, as a unit, whatever they operate, wherever they are, wherever they're trying to control. Because these groups get wiped out immediately. You just can't have them anymore in terms of this drone warfare. There's a lot of things you can't do on a battlefield that you used to be able to. Another one is tanks. You can't just roll a tank through Ukraine to Russia in today's day and age because a $5,000 drone is going to blow it up immediately. There's no way to counter that if you're a tank. It's just not. And so that is something that is definitely interesting in terms of this time period in particular, because it's begin to get to a stalemate of who has the better drones and who has the better drone defense systems. And nowadays, we're seeing other groups use, I think actually Russia is using this. They're using things where they scramble drones. And like I said before, right? So drones nowadays have the functionality and capacity, thanks to AI, to operate fully autonomously. But that wasn't always the case. And an example of this, right, is say we have a drone that is operating autonomously or whatever. Or matter of fact, we have a drone that is a US drone, so it's taboo for it to autonomously kill someone. But Russia or whatever, whoever that it's combating against, we notice that they're using drone scrambling technology. So wherever a drone gets so close to a group of people or a squad, the signal would scram. So there's no direct way, there's no direct line of sight to detect this group, right? So that's what they're doing. But now we actually have so that's how they would counter it. So now we actually have the counter of the counter, which is the complete autonomous version of the drones themselves. So as soon as a signal gets jammed from one of these drones, it goes straight into AI mode. And what this does is it then predicts where the user or where the enemy combatant is, and it would just kamikaze attack it. It would just swarm dive it, things like that. And this isn't even necessarily the MQ Reaper drone. This is any $5,000, $7,000 drone that could be flown manually. Now has AI equipped to it that can operate completely autonomously in a wartime setting. So, what does this mean in terms of where we're headed in modern warfare? Well, it means a lot more casualties and a lot more cheaper casualties at that. A lot more damage to infrastructure is a potential cause, just because you really can't make ground with you can't make ground when you're going against these type of wartime tactics. And if we look at something, right? So the Reaper is 60 million. And this is equipped with all types of 3D radar spatial technology to identify enemies. The UAV, like we talked about earlier, it has, laser infrastructure on it. It has Hellfire missiles on it, stuff like that. And this is going for $60 million. The problem with this, though, is say if another country were to have their own drone, right, for like 5K. The cost and time to produce this drone is much greater than the time it is to produce this drone. So if you just swarm 5K drones at this Reaper over and over again, it's going to go out. And now that creates a economic disadvantage for the Reaper drone, because even though it has the best equipment, even though it has the best offensive capability, it still can't defend a $5,000 drone flying right at it on a suicide mission. It just can't. And the fact that these can be made and mass produced at scale is damning to the drones. And that's why during the Iran war, you see Iran utilize these drones a lot, and you actually see us create a version called the Lucas drone. And this was for like, what, 20K? Something like that. So it's like still more, but it's one of those things, that you have to be able to combat it somehow. So this makes being able to occupy territory, being able to control territory, extremely difficult, because at the end of the day, these things can go up in the air and just circle the air for, you're talking about hours and hours until they get a target either directly on drone, that the drone sees it itself and spots, or from a soldier on the ground that may pull out his phone, take a picture of the target, send it to the drone itself, and then the drone is firing a Hellfire missile within minutes. So, stuff like this is definitely pretty damning and, and deadly. So drone warfare is definitely no joke. Oh my gosh, like you do not want to be fighting a war against these type of drones. You really don't. And what makes this brutal on the front lines, right? So the drone psychology is a lot similar to the trench warfare psychology, where if you are a soldier, right? This is you. You're a soldier, and this is you in World War One. You're hearing explosions all the time. This is you in Vietnam. This is you in any modern recent war. You're hearing explosions all the time. And that's going to affect you mentally, because you're going to be shell shocked. You just hear so much all the time that it's going to be terrifying. It's going to haunt you forever. In today's day and age, this is the same thing, but with the buzzing of a drone. And if you've ever heard, or if you've ever seen a drone and you've flown one and stuff like that, they have that distinct zzz noise where it's like, a drone is around the corner or whatever. And so that's when it's life or death. And like we said before, how it takes nothing for somebody to strap a $5,000 drone up with C4 and just literally dive it straight at you, So you're constantly living in that perpetual state of fear that could happen. And you're constantly living in that perpetual state of fear that there's a MQ-9 Reaper drone ahead that is getting ready to fire a Hellfire missile at you. You know? And these things operate really high up in the air too, so it's like on dark nights, cloudy days, you wouldn't even necessarily be able to see a drone is above you. All you would just know is you get struck down from above. So it's pretty damning, and it's pretty tough stuff right now. But yeah, I hope you guys like this video. Please feel free to comment, further discussion, stuff like that. But yeah, I will catch y'all in the next one.